Picture this, folks. Emmanuel Tadlock, known far and wide as the Weed Goblin, has just crossed the border. He's on a mission, smuggling some of that nose candy. But oh boy, he gets nabbed by border control. Now, Emmanuel isn't your average Joe. He's got a reputation that stretches from Texas to Timbuktu. And all because he's got a knack for getting into the stickiest of pickles. Today, his pickle is flavored with a dash of illicit nose candy and a sprinkling of Border Patrol agents. Suddenly, our stealthy Weed Goblin isn't so stealthy. He's spotlit by the glaring flashlights of the Border Patrol agents. And they're not looking to swap campfire stories. They're after the contraband, and the Weed Goblin is their golden goose. But Emmanuel isn't one to give up easily. He's a fighter, a scrapper, a regular Houdini. With a quicksilver grin, he escapes the agents' clutches, leaving them fumbling in the dust of his wake. Now, you'd think that would be the end of his troubles, right? Oh, how wrong you'd be. You see, escaping from border control is one thing. Navigating the vast, unforgiving desert is a whole different kettle of fish. Suddenly, our smuggler finds himself lost in the heart of the desert, with nothing but the moon to guide him. The desert isn't a friendly host. It's cold at night, scorching in the day, and it doesn't take kindly to trespassers. Yet Emmanuel keeps going. He's got the grit of a cowboy and the determination of a mule. He's got a mission, and he's not about to let a little thing like a desert stand in his way. So as the sun sets and the desert creatures start their nightly serenade, the Weed Goblin trudges on. He's got miles to go, a nose candy cargo to deliver, and a whole lot of desert to conquer. With the border control agents hot on his heels, Emmanuel finds himself lost in the vast, unforgiving desert. Now Emmanuel, our Weed Goblin, is lost in the desert. And he's not just lost for an hour or a day, but for 3 whole days. Imagine, if you will, a man who's used to the hustle and bustle of city life, now marooned in a sea of sand and heat. The desert, a harsh mistress, presents a whole new set of challenges for our city slicker. The days are hotter than a jalapeno pepper, and the nights colder than a snowman's nose. But Emmanuel, he's a fighter. He doesn't give up that easily. On the first day, he tries to get his bearings. He squints at the sun, then at the endless expanse of sand. He's got no compass, no map, just his wits. And let me tell you, the desert can play tricks on your mind. You start seeing things that aren't there. Like that time he thought he saw a pool of water, only to find out it was a mirage. Or that time he mistook a cactus for a beautiful señorita. Let's just say he won't be making that mistake again. By the second day, he's getting desperate. He's parched, hungry, and tired. He looks at the cactus he'd tried to woo the previous day. "Well, señorita," he says, "I guess it's just you and me." He takes a bite of the prickly plant, only to spit it out immediately. "Guess you're not as sweet as you look," he mutters, wiping his mouth. On the third day, he's almost given up hope. He's lying on the sand, looking up at the blazing sun. His lips are cracked, his throat is dry, and he's got sand in places he didn't even know existed. But then he hears something, a faint rustling sound. He sits up, squinting into the distance. Is it another mirage? Or is it... Just when things look bleak, a figure emerges from the desert haze. It's none other than Skinny Gandalf, Emmanuel's long-lost father. Now this is a plot twist, folks. Emmanuel, our Weed Goblin, comes face to face with his pops, Skinny Gandalf. But wait, there's more. Now imagine this, folks. Our protagonist, the one and only Weed Goblin, tired, thirsty, and sunburnt, stumbles upon a man sitting on a rock in the middle of nowhere. He's got a long white beard, a hat that's seen better days, and a pair of eyes that are a mirror image of Emmanuel's own. If you're thinking this is a mirage, well, it ain't. This here is Skinny Gandalf, Emmanuel's long-lost pops. "Son?" Skinny Gandalf says, squinting into the sun. "Is that you, Emmanuel?" Emmanuel's jaw drops, his eyes go wide, and he stammers, "Pops? Is that really you?" It's a heartfelt moment, folks, a real tearjerker. But don't worry, we're not about to get all mushy on you. Now here's where things get interesting. You see, Emmanuel's always been proud of his Mexican heritage. His mama told him tales of his father, a legendary figure in the Mexican underworld. So, you can imagine his surprise when he looks at Skinny Gandalf, the man who is supposed to be his father, and sees a white man. "Wait a minute," Emmanuel says, scratching his head. "You're white." Skinny Gandalf chuckles and says, "Well, son, your eyes don't deceive you. I am indeed white, but that don't change the fact that I'm your father." Emmanuel is stunned. He's been smuggling, running from the law, getting lost in the desert, all in the name of his Mexican heritage. And now he's found out his dad is a white man named Skinny Gandalf. Talk about a plot twist, right? Now, don't get us wrong. There's nothing wrong with being white or Mexican or anything else for that matter. It's just that Emmanuel's whole identity is based on what he thought was his Mexican heritage. This revelation is one heck of a curveball. But in true Weed Goblin fashion, Emmanuel takes it in stride. He laughs, wipes the sweat off his brow and says, "Well, Pops, this sure does explain my love for country music." And just like that, the tension is broken. The father and son share a hearty laugh. And the truth about Emmanuel's heritage becomes a punchline to a joke. And so, in the middle of the desert, Emmanuel discovers his dad is white, turning his whole understanding of his heritage on its head. So here we have Emmanuel, the Weed Goblin, having a full-on heritage crisis in the middle of the desert. Now imagine this. You're parched, sunburnt, and your last meal was a lizard you convinced yourself was a gourmet meal. Then out of nowhere, you discover that your dad, who you thought was just a figment of desert delirium, is not only real but also as white as a ghost. A ghost with a nickname like Skinny Gandalf, no less. As the dust settles, Emmanuel's mind is swirling faster than a tumbleweed in a Texas tornado. He's grappling with the revelation, his mind playing a frantic game of pinball with questions. Does this mean I'm half Gandalf? Do I get a magic staff? Can I pull off a long white beard? And just when you think it can't get any funnier, he asks, "Wait, does this mean I have to start calling soccer football?" Now that's a heritage crisis if I've ever seen one. But then, amidst the comic chaos, there comes a moment of clarity. A moment where the absurdity of his situation fades and he realizes that his heritage, his identity, isn't defined by the color of his skin or by his father's questionable taste in nicknames. No, it's defined by his experiences, his choices, his adventures, even if they include cross-border smuggling and desert hallucinations. So, with a newfound perspective, our Weed Goblin takes a deep breath and embraces his altered reality. There's a shift in his demeanor, a glint in his eye that says he's ready to take on whatever comes his way, even if it means dealing with a dad who looks like he's auditioning for a low-budget Lord of the Rings remake. And that, my friends, is the beauty of life. It throws curveballs at you, shakes your world up, and just when you think you've lost your way, it gives you a story to tell. A story of resilience, of laughter, of rethinking heritage in the most unlikely of places. With his world turned upside down, Emmanuel and Skinny Gandalf set off, leaving the desert behind. So, after a wild ride, our Weed Goblin and his dad, Skinny Gandalf, finally leave the desert behind. Our Weed Goblin, Emmanuel Tadlock, and his dad, Skinny Gandalf, dusted off their boots, wiped the sweat from their brows, and squinted against the setting sun. The desert, that vast expanse of sand and sun, was now just a memory in the rearview mirror of their beaten-up truck. It had been a journey of unexpected revelations and a whole lot of laughs. Emmanuel, the young man who once thought he was as Mexican as tequila and tacos, discovered that his roots were as white as his dad's beard. Now that's a plot twist that even Hollywood wouldn't dare to touch. But in the grand tradition of the Wild West, our Weed Goblin took the news like a cowboy takes a shot of whiskey, straight and without flinching. And what about Skinny Gandalf? Well, he was just glad to have his son by his side, even if he did have to reveal some family secrets that were more tightly packed than a burrito. It seems that the old saying is true. The apple doesn't fall far from the cactus. But let's not forget the most important lesson from this adventure. Never, and I mean never, try to smuggle nose candy across the border. It leads to a world of trouble, and you might just end up lost in the desert for 3 days. Trust me, 3 days without a taco is 3 days too many. So what's next for our dynamic duo? More adventures, more revelations, or perhaps a quiet life of contemplation and reflection? Well, whatever it is, we know that Emmanuel, our Weed Goblin, will face it head-on with a smile on his face and a joke on his lips. And that, folks, is the end of the Weed Goblin's Wild West adventure. A journey of self-discovery and a whole lot of laughs.